I think it'd be good if we had more things in the community to do to bring everybody together, because not a lot is there really. If we think about it, what community is there? Who comes together to do what? What projects are going on? I'm on about like projects that the young people want to take part in, something that they're interested in.
Hello and welcome to the Leading Communities podcast, brought to you by Aspire for You CIC and produced by That's All Media CIC. I'm Kit Shawande and I'll be your host. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Leading Communities podcast. We are out here with two specialists around young people and care experience young people specifically, and we're going to be learning about what it takes to support and lead young care experience people. So with me are Anka and Lisa. Anka, take us through what you do and how it looks.
Sure, so I'm a personal advisor within the Leaving Care Service. And my role is to support young people, to advise them, to guide them, help them to access their entitlements, and to be there for them and walk alongside their journey going into adulthood. Because at 17, the social worker, they've got a social worker, but it starts to come a bit less with the social worker, and the PA comes on board. And then when they get to 18, if adults aren't involved, it's the PA.
So you're taking that journey, and the reason they call it transition and leaving care is transitioning from maybe living in a home or with a foster carer into their own independent settings. And your job as a PA, what does a PA stand for?
Personal advisor.
Okay, and your job is getting them into this world of
into adulthood.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, and as you do that, how does Lisa come in?
Well, I'm the housing support worker, so I work alongside the PAs with the young people in the homes, getting them to live independently, teaching them and just being there for them really, how to cook, clean, to look after a home, sustain their tenancies, and to keep healthy relationships around, like say, neighbours or
within the
partnerships
community.
And within the community.
So take us through a bit of that particular corner. What do the young people face when they're having to now have their own space? Like, what's that journey of even finding a place, and what's that like in reality?
It's a big process because housing is very limited. So it is definitely a long process for the young people and for us supporting them. But once an accommodation is sourced and we've got one, that's when Lisa comes on board and does a lot of the work with the young people.
How long does it take sometimes, like on average, or what's the most extreme wait you've ever seen?
About 6 months, a little bit longer.
Wow, okay. And then when you find a place, Lisa gets involved. So talk us through like the first year of you supporting a young person.
Well, firstly, they all have a setting up home grant, don't they? So we use that to buy their white goods, beds, anything they need to, obviously, to live in the flat.
What size is that grant?
Well, it was 2,500, but it's just gone up this April to 3,000.
And it's called a settling in grant.
Setting up home grant.
Setting up home grant. Okay, so do you guide them on which things to select first?
Yeah, because I mean they'll want a 50-inch telly, and whereas they really need to get
a washing machine, a cooker, dishwasher, toilet products. Okay, and then in there you've got to include everything from bedding.
Yeah, everything they'll need to set up their home.
all the kitchen.
Painting and decorating,
Yeah.
carpets, flooring.
Carpets.
Sometimes they are provided because we've got a young person scheme, haven't we?
Yeah, so there are some flats that come with a starter pack, and there's some that don't at the moment, which is being looked at. But when young people need to access the setting up home grant, we definitely will guide them and help them, because as everything has gone up, £3,000 doesn't stretch that far. Not when you need carpet and beds and storage and kitchen stuff.
It's the washing machine, fridge, cooker. That's a massive chunk, doesn't it, out of the money?
Yeah, because some of these are what, 200, 250?
Yeah.
Are they allowed to get second hand, or does it need to be brand new for health and safety?
We'd prefer them to have good quality things, as we would for ourselves, as we would for our families. They're no different. So if we try and strive to get them the best quality so that it will last them.
That really matters. Okay, yeah, so you've got my imagination kind of going now. So you're setting up this home. How good at the maths, haggling, price comparison do some of the young people come when you're working with them?
Some are quite good, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then some need a lot of guidance.
Really?
So I'll help them set up all their gas, electricity, water. We can apply for any kind of reductions for being like on use or anything. And just money management really, because they just struggle with, but they're just like any other young person. They want to go out, don't they? And
YOLO.
instead they've got bills.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where we've got to try and, you know,
Yeah,
pay your bills first, and whatever's left,
Yeah.
then go out. But
And are there any programs that you think work for some of those life skills areas? Have you seen anything where those financial literacy that gets them ready for before you, or are you their first level of financial literacy?
well, you'd like to think the foster carers would start
Yeah.
teaching them first.
Or the care homes?
Yeah. And then, or their supported living if they're in them. To me, they should start getting the skills in for them for cooking, you know, and management, and all that.
But sometimes it doesn't occur.
So then it comes to us to start.
And I suppose if they've had to live in different areas, you can't always guarantee that there's been a continuity of care, in the sense that if foster carer A was maybe starting about washing your clothes or whatever, foster carer B may have to focus on attachment related stuff, and then they never get around to maybe, and then foster carer C probably is expecting everyone to have done all of that work, and they've not done it, and maybe for whatever reason now they're 17, 18 and transitioning. So there's times where people can fall through the gaps, maybe? Interesting. Okay. So you look after some of the basics there, and then what does the rest of that year look like? So you've set up all the accounts and the bills. We've been through John Lewis. I'm joking. So what we do is we go through the Aldi middle aisle, find all the whatever we can. So that's now in the house. What next do you do for the rest of that?
I'd also say, Lisa, you also help with like not just those practicalities, but also you do a lot with if things need to be made. We'd never leave a young person on their own. We'd always be there to support them, and you've done quite a lot of that.
Yeah.
Made in what sense?
Like furniture that needs making.
Oh, like IKEA packing. Oh, so you know,
Put curtain poles up.
get the dungarees on, roll up the sleeves. Okay, practical stuff as well. All right, so now they're living in the house. What next?
Just so they sustain this tenancy. You know, that's the main thing, and yeah, looking after everything and making sure they're not falling out with any neighbours, and
Those types.
and just learn to be independent.
What are the things that you do that people wouldn't know that you needed to do?
Some would teach them to cook, because none of them don't, because they prefer to just call a takeaway, and we have to try and say to them, you know, if you buy all this from Aldi and cook, that'll give you a few days worth.
Other supermarkets are available.
Other supermarkets are available, but
Yeah. Okay. So cooking. What else is like unseen but necessary things that you guys do for the young people?
Sometimes they just want a chat.
a chat, yeah.
Sometimes they just want that advice. Like we're working with one young person together, and that particular young person, she just often wants our advice. She just wants to see what our outlook on things are. Our views and what we would perhaps do, or what we think about a certain situation. So sometimes it is that guidance that they just want to know. What would you do in this certain situation? What's the best way to handle it? What support is available?
And then I have one young person I go to see, and he doesn't see anybody but me. You know, that's my biggest
Challenge.
yeah, because I think they're so lonely, and I think if he could just have a little bit more finance or a little bit of help, I don't know, even just a bus pass, if you know, he would be able to get out. But he's so good with his money management, and he's putting all his money in his bills and stuff. He's not got nothing left to
Much
go
left,
and
yeah.
socialise.
Yeah.
So he's just
There.
sitting and just gaming, and then seeing me once a week.
So how do we handle that isolation, and what do you think? Yeah, what could be some of the solutions? How often does that isolation occur?
It depends on the young person's needs as well.
Yeah.
So for example, it depends on their needs and what's going on for them. But we tend to talk about, okay, so you're at home now. Have you thought about going into college, doing a course, learning a skill, getting into employment, looking at their areas of interest and what they want to do? rather than what we feel is best. Because if we say, for example, someone wanted to do hairdressing, and we said, oh, start off with barbering, they want to do hairdressing.
Yeah, you got to find the right kind of match. So.
And then some that are on the spectrum, and they're, you know, they're expected to just go and get a job, like, and then they can't.
It doesn't work.
They're not. You know, if they can't physically do a job, and then the job centre is sending them to jobs to do nights in a warehouse, it's no good, is it? They need to be more understanding of.
I mean, I want to do isolation a bit, so we'll come back to isolation, but talk to me about how do you guys deal with that job centre interface? Like, because you've made me think that, oh, actually, yeah. Like, how do you advocate? How do you support? How do you inspire on that job centre front? Because what we hear from a lot of young people is you'll get 2 or 3 types of kind of caseworker in terms of job centres. So they'll tell us that, oh yeah, my job centre person, they just call, I tell them so and so, they leave me alone. Others will say so and so's on my back. So which things do you get involved with and which things do you don't when it comes to job centre stuff?
Everything, to be honest, pretty much everything.
You speak on their behalf?
If they need me to. I've had a young person that's said, I don't like talking on the phone, I prefer messages, or don't email me, message me to let me know when you're going to call, or when there's going to be an appointment. So I've called Universal Credit on their behalf with them to sort that out.
It could be anything that you do. And I think that's really important, because that's another thing in terms of that leading communities. When we do want to communicate with the young people, I think you've got to have a hybrid approach. You don't know which thing works for who, and you don't know how long they're going to be in a particular phase. In this time next year, they could be okay with phone calls.
Exactly.
But this year, they're not.
They're not ready.
Right. So we've always got to be prepared to design for that, especially if we're thinking about care experience young people. How do you deal with the interface for healthcare? Doctor's appointments, NHS stuff.
Well, when they move into the flats, you help them register with any of the GPs and dentists.
Okay.
So they're up and running. So if they do need anything, they can go. Yeah. But we'll support them in with travel as well. If they can't get there, I'll help them. And
so it's really involved. Like over a year, there's never anything to run out of doing if you.
No, never.
Right? Okay.
Never.
And I'm thinking, and then obviously school, college, uni. Do you also deal with advocating there?
Yes.
Employers, like if they're ever in an employer dispute.
If they was to be, I'd support. Yeah. We would support.
Because in a way, I'm thinking about, does the job description basically say parent, yeah?
That's basically what we are, because they haven't got that adult figure to go and get advice from or encouragement from. That's where they come to us, don't they?
So going very quickly back to isolation, what do you suggest, or what do you think works, or what have you seen works for supporting isolation?
For me, like, I've had conversations with the young people that I work with, because it'll be a case of, oh, I don't have a lot of money, or Universal Credit doesn't pay me enough, and I've had to sit down and say, it's not a job, it's not a lifestyle, it's there to help you in your time of life when you need it. It's not going to pay for you going out to concerts or buying takeaways. It's going to be there to help you pay for your rent and essential bills. So if you want to do those extra things, we need to look at employment.
I'm just more there for support and emotionally as well. They just like a good chat.
They do like a good chat, definitely. And also, I think it'd be good if we had more things in the community to do to bring everybody together, because it's not a lot, is there really? If we think about it, what community is there? Who comes together to do what? What projects are going on?
So for
not in the interest for, like, big people with big jobs. I'm on about like projects that the young people want to take part in, something that they're interested in.
Because that's really interesting, that even from your perspective, so I think from the outside in, the world would look at it as young person may not have a clue, but they've got you. But you're saying to a certain extent, it's not easy for you to find what they can do in terms of isolation.
We have to research and look what's available.
Yeah, and when you do look, does it feel like there's a lot in this region?
It's limited.
What's worked then? Like what's been some good ways of targeting isolation, or what's been some good events where you're like, if they could do more of that?
I can give you some good examples, especially during COVID when we'd go out for walks. So when it was safe to and government guidelines changed and we could meet up but keep it like a 2 metre distance, a lot of my young people like going on walks.
Really?
Yeah, so we'd
Simple
meet up.
stuff.
Yeah, just simple stuff. We'd meet up wherever, whichever park, and we'd go for a walk. And as we're walking, they're talking, and yeah, it was really nice.
So interestingly, like yesterday, one of our guys was like, "Oh, we need to do well-being walks Wednesdays." I don't know why they were like, going for it, but that was really interesting. Now you're making me think. So it doesn't have to be high tech,
No.
kind of company,
No,
but
not
for
at
some,
all.
what else do you think works for some of the young people?
Coming together at the hub, with like do things like Care Leavers Week, and that's been a huge success.
Experiences matter.
Yeah, we've done a Christmas party. That's been really good. We're looking at next to see what, as the year goes on, what things are going on and what can we do to get everybody involved.
So yeah, nice simple things. You spoke a little bit about the money bit. What kind of support do you think is needed in terms of income generation? Any things that you've seen that work well?
What I think we could do to help, what I see is the gas and electric, the utility bills and stuff that I feel they could do with a bit more help. Because the one we had, the government payment over the winter, it was great, wasn't it? Because none of them run out.
Oh really? So tell me more then. That's
It
good.
kept them all topped up.
Yeah.
Whereas when it stopped, they're back again like, oh, I've got no electric, or I've got none of this. So, and I think when they're only on UC, for me to think of one of my young people in their flats over a weekend with no gas and electricity.
So talk to me about fuel poverty then. So how often do you think some of the young people are subjected to, I've got no money for the gas and I have to go X amount of days without? How often does it happen? How long have you seen it happen?
I haven't experienced that personally because, say for example, a young person was to say I've got no gas and electric, then I'd call the managers to see what we can do. I'd call around different charities.
Yeah, but sometimes I've had one of my young people who was too embarrassed to tell that he'd run out.
Okay.
So when he did finally talk to me, he hadn't had it for a number of days, and he'd lost his food in his fridge.
Yeah, because there's consequences. Yeah.
And then when he decided to tell me, then obviously, like Anka says, we phone our managers, what can we give? So we go and do him a bit of a food shop to replenish, put some money on his electric meter, so he's got that for a...
So you have to do a lot of reactive work when that occurs.
Yeah.
So in some ways, by you then having that fuel, I think it was the winter fuel payment top up or something like that, by you having some of these credits, by the young people having these credits, you noticed that there wasn't as much fuel crisis.
Yeah.
It helped him.
Yeah. And
It definitely helped them. They didn't have much gas. They didn't have the gas, but they wasn't bothered because they got the electric.
Yeah.
So they was having these little heater fans to warm.
the rest.
We used the electric to warm them
And they could just warm one room.
and warm one room.
Because a lot of time we talk about the elderly going through these things, but even young people are going through it.
Our young people are as well.
Yeah.
And I think what's really interesting based on what you're saying is that because that scheme existed, all of a sudden your reactive work reduces, right?
Yeah.
Because now you don't have to chase the charities and all of that.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting that if somebody fixes one part of the system, it actually allows you to maybe do more of the growth mindset work, protective work and plan ahead rather than crisis.
Because the water you can get discount. So like Severn Trent and South Staffs, which is this area, you can apply, because the care leavers and they're on low income, you can apply for a water reduction. And it can be from, usually a standard is about £40 a month, and it can be brought down to £8 to £10, which is a real big saving for them. Yeah. But gas and electric you can't.
So we're looking at a 75% decrease, just linked with them being known for their care experience.
And low income,
And low income, okay.
Low income,
It's more the low income, not the care experience then, okay. That's really important. But other fuel doesn't work like that.
No. The only thing we've got was the winter payment, which if they could have that throughout, that would be a massive help, yeah.
What other things do you think then contribute to crisis, that if there was a scheme that could limit how much reactionary work you do and then we can actually work on growth? And
I think Wi-Fi is pretty important, and I think it's an essential. In this day and age, it is an essential. You know, if you can't see somebody, you'd video call them. Yeah, it's not the same, but you can still see each other.
Because we have had I know to about 3 young people that go outside pubs with their phones to
For
connect
Wi-Fi.
to their Wi-Fi.
It used to be McDonald's. Look at
Well,
that.
they're doing McDonald's as well, but if it's either they go by the pubs, don't they?
wherever they
Wherever's
can find
closest,
Find
Yeah.
interesting.
they go log on like that,
Yeah.
and then they go back home because they've not got it at home. Whereas I think, like you say, that would
Yeah.
And you could argue that in some ways it expands you to vulnerabilities, meaning if you don't want to be affiliated with said pub, digital exclusion is forcing you to be around situations that maybe you don't even want. And then when you
they're
get
vulnerable as well, they
exactly,
could get
yeah, and when you get seen at the pub,
Yeah.
that also kind of creates some kind of, you know, brand rep in a neighborhood. So again, just that, and that's one of the things that we're really interested in. Like, what are the unintended consequences? What are those little hidden things that everybody overlooks? But when you actually look deeper, you're like, well, if you fix this, 7 other things get better.
So like I mentioned like employment or college, but how would you do that if you haven't got a laptop?
Yeah. Yep.
Where would you go? What's available? So recently we've had laptops that we can give to support our young people to do those things, and that's helped loads.
Did you guys ever know about the Combined Authority? I think they had a scheme around digital inclusion, but I don't know if it went to the colleges or elsewhere. Did you guys ever hear? Okay, that would be interesting. So definitely thinking about stuff like utility support, definitely things that reduce isolation in either access to outdoor spaces or access to digital.
Also, I've just thought of another thing that we do here in Warsaw. So leisure passes. So if you're a Warsaw resident, you've got access to Warsaw leisure centres at no cost. And if you want to access a gym within a different borough, it's something that we can now support with their mental health as well, the physical health.
Anything that would work like that for food. So if we think about what Leisure Pass does, it unlocks
Yeah.
opportunities for well-being. Wi-Fi unlocks opportunities to reduce isolation, communications, access jobs. Winter fuel payment unlocks crisis, reliance on crisis, and it unlocks kind of this, it locks a portion of your money that you'd use for survival, and then maybe again you can use it for other protective factors. So when it comes to food, what could be used to unlock a particular issue elsewhere?
See, I think if you had vegetables and fruit growing, it'd be good. Like, say for example here in the gardens, if we had fruit and vegetables growing, and some, we maintained it together, we'd get the young people to come down, they can help us maintain it, they can also come and do a bit of a shop, so get what they want, and then it means that anything else they need to buy, their bill would be reduced because they've got
another thing, they've got a sustainable way of eating.
Exactly. And
So-
it's also teaching them about growing your own foods and what's your diet like.
So if I was going to be like devil's advocate, which is if some people didn't experience or get exposure to pressure or financial pressures, would they, again this is a theory, they'd end up misspending the money anyway. What would you guys say to that? Like, to a certain extent, some people need to not have things too easy, because if it is too easy, they may not use the money in the healthiest senses. Any thoughts?
Well, we'd sit down and do budgeting plans and look at where the money's going, and bills are paid first, and then food shops, and anything else after, it would go into savings if there is anything else after. So I've got young people that work, and that's how they do it.
Perfect.
And if they've got a bit for savings and a bit for whatever they want to do with it. I've got young people that are driving, that have bought their own cars, that are doing their own insurance, road tax.
So in a way you're saying, A, with good guidance, some of our young people are less likely to be reckless, but B, it also sounds like you're saying, Kit, there's too much in life going on. There's, you know what I mean? There's always something for them to achieve, that it's never that easy for them to have loose money.
Having extra money for them is good, because it means that they can go and do the things like driving lessons. They're not cheap. We've got young people into music, they want to book studio time. That's not cheap. So it's sitting down, having conversations, saying, right, you have got extra money, and what's your plans with it?
Yeah, invest it in yourself in a good way.
Yeah.
And it's having those talks and chats, and it could be several times, it could be once, it could be 100 times, but just keep having those talks.
One of the things that we've been looking at is how do we help and support young people to be more consultants, especially if they've been through certain lived experiences. Because one thing that like you said, which is, if you take everything that you've given me the digital exclusion, the isolation, etc. One of the things that we've been thinking about is like, okay, if you're behind in school, you may need maybe up to 7 years to get back on track, right? At least to get a career that can earn you, let's just say 35 grand plus. So if you're kind of that far behind, sometimes all you've got is your knowledge or an exceptional skill. And if you're not lucky enough to have an exceptional skill, your lived experience can be sold, because we now know there's a lot of people that make a living from turning their life around, whether it's from mentoring, talking in schools. So one of the things we were thinking is that, linking financial literacy with young people as consultants, that's a way where they can start to earn and generate money for themselves. What are your guys' reflection of that? Would it work for some of you care experienced young people? If not, why not? If so, why? I'm workshopping this idea.
Okay.
Work with the young people that you work with. Looking at some of the young people you work with, we've got a portion that they'll be fine. They're going to go in college, get an education. Things are going to be fine. We got some that are slightly neurodiverse, so maybe the same education pathway may not work for them. And we might have others that, because of the extent of their trauma, some of the normal education pathways aren't easy.
And it's not right for them. It won't meet their needs.
If we were to, I've been working on young offenders and turning them into consultants in order to help them generate money based on their lived experience. I call it knowledge exchange. Yeah. So they're selling their experience to make a living, and they are using it to train professionals and people that want to know and want to learn. So that's a way where from say 75 quid to 200, 300 pounds, they can get paid like other consultants get paid. So that's a way where you don't need extra school. We'd show them how to do presentation skills, package their story and put it out. So my thoughts was like, would it work for some of your young people? If not, why not? Yeah. If so, why?
I think it would. I think there are young people that, like you say, have got the experience and they want to make that difference in the community and help other young people because of what they've gone through.
Okay, because I'm always thinking about that income generation. What are the sustainable ways of doing it? Because a lot of things, sometimes you need extra equipment. So it's like, what can we do where it's you? How do we help you make more money from you? And the reason I came to that idea is I was deconstructing how certain people make money. And if you're funny, it's you. You're naturally funny. And yes, you have to practice it. If you're a model, it's you got born with a J. So there's an economy of making money from something you possess. But if you can be shown how to package it, it feels like this is the era where, you can set up a website, you're good to go, you know what I mean? Go on, you're going to say something?
There's a lot online, there's a lot of influencers.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, yeah. All right, and then the last bit that we were going to be exploring and talking about, because we've covered a lot of what you do, who you support, how you support. What do you guys think the community can do to support both maybe a business community, third sector charities, or faith groups? Like what do you think is needed?
I think coming together and giving opportunities for young people. So whether it's an apprenticeship, but not an apprenticeship that's for a year and then there's no job at the end of it, an apprenticeship that's going to lead into a career, so meaningful apprenticeships. In terms of like faith groups, like coming together and saying this is what's available. Say for example within the Sikh community, not a lot of people know, but you can go to any Gurdwara and there'll always be food, which we call langar, and you don't have to pay for it, and all walks of life can walk into the Gurdwara, access the food. There's no judgment, but it's letting young people know that if you're ever in a position that you've got no food and you need food and you can't contact somebody, know that you can go there, there's food there, no one's going to judge you.
So definitely thinking about practical support, but also if we do want young people going down positive pathways, maybe businesses need to think about specifically employment or apprenticeships for care experience young people. Anything else?
I think with care experience young people, they haven't got confidence, have they? They lack
they do lack confidence, even making phone calls sometimes. Even going to meetings, they want you to talk, they want you to start it, and it's
I think all their life they've been judged, they've been talked about, they've been discussed. You know what I mean? So I think they need...
It's empowering them. It's giving them that voice, say, you can do this, I'm right by you, whatever happens, If anyone says anything out of line or upsets you, I'm here, I will back you.
And just to tell them that, you know, no matter what your background is,
Yeah.
you're always good enough to get where you want to be.
I'm then also even thinking on top of that, like if ever there are events, maybe some of these venues need to be sending you guys some tickets to pass on to the young people, because that matters too. Yeah. If they want to get in touch, how should that look? Like, what's the best ways for organisations to get in touch with you to say, hey, we got this and we want some of your care experience?
Come and do presentations and stuff,
That'd
couldn't
be
they? All the teams then could to come and then show what they've got to offer, and then we can then.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they wanted to come, and did a presentation, we could either have the presentation with us and then we could pass that information down, or it could be a whole event where we get the young people in. We can advertise, you know, certain companies are coming in. This is what it's going to be about.
Sweet.
You know, come and see what you think.
So how do they get in touch? Is there like a general phone line? If they look on Google, like, talk us through, what do you know in terms of the best ways to get in touch with the team leaders? Like,
Contact our team manager.
Yeah, it's
you know
TLC.
Yeah, TLC Hub.
TLC Hub
Yeah.
in Google.
And it'll all come up.
Okay.
If you Google transitional leaving care,
And any area, like, so if somebody's in Wolverhampton, they can put transition leaving care Wolverhampton. Obviously we're in Warsaw. If you're in Coventry, transition leaving care Coventry, and you can find out from there. As in, you can try and find out.
I'm not sure about other local authorities, but for us, if you put in our transitional leaving care Warsaw, our address will come up. There'll be a number that you can contact,
Awesome.
and they will direct you to whoever you need to speak to.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, is there anything I should have asked you that I haven't asked you?
Can't think of anything, can you?
Sweet. Okay, but really big thanks for coming on board. I think you've definitely opened a lot of eyes on the work behind the work, and I think sometimes that's the part that's missing. And I think we've been able to get a really strong picture about how sometimes the reactive work takes away from doing the progressive work. But if we can actually plug some of these predictable challenges, we reduce the number of crises. Now we can go and do that big stuff that sets you up for 35, 45, 55 and all of that. Sweet. All right. Big thank you for coming on board. Thanks for listening to another episode of Leading Communities, and stay tuned for more. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to keep up to date with all things Leading Communities. You can follow Aspire For You at A4UCIC. To follow That's All Media, search at That's All Media. You can also join us on Facebook at Leading Communities Podcast.